The massive space station hung like a silver wheel against the black of space. Ships from across the galaxy docked at its many arms, each vessel different from the others. Some looked like floating crystals, others like living creatures with metal skin. The Galactic Assembly Station was the most important place in known space, where every advanced civilization sent their best speakers to make decisions for billions of beings. Inside the great meeting hall, creatures of every shape and size filled the seats. The Zilari sat on their floating cushions, their blue skin shining under the soft lights. Their large eyes never blinked as they watched the proceedings. Near them, the insect-like Threx clicked their mandibles softly, their forearms moving as they took notes on devices that looked like glowing pearls. The Kuvani delegation occupied an entire section, their massive forms requiring specially built chairs. These bear-like beings were covered in thick fur that changed colors with their moods. Today, most showed calm purple tones, though a few displayed the yellow patches that meant they were thinking hard about something high above in the crystal galleries. The energy beings, called the Futari, flickered like living stars. They rarely spoke during meetings, but when they did, their words carried great weight. They had been traveling between stars when most other species were, still learning to make fire. In a small section near the back sat the humans. 50 years ago, they had surprised everyone by showing up in crude metal ships, asking to join galactic civilization. Most species had laughed at first. These pink-skinned bipeds from a small yellow star seemed so young, so simple. They wore basic clothing and spoke in loud voices. They asked too many questions and seemed confused by the most basic galactic customs. Ambassador Sarah Chun sat perfectly still, her dark hair pulled back in a simple style. She wore the standard blue uniform of the Human Diplomatic Corps, which looked plain compared to the flowing robes and glittering scales around her. Next to her, Commander Jake Morrison reviewed data on his tablet, his weathered face showing no emotion. The other human delegates sat quietly, watching and listening. The current speaker was High Counselor Vex Thai of the Damari Empire. His species looked like tall, gray-skinned elves with silver eyes that seemed to see everything. The Damari had ruled 30 star systems for over 2,000 years. They considered themselves the most civilized race in the galaxy. Honored delegates, Vex Thai said, his voice carrying clearly through the hall's translation systems. We gathered today to discuss a matter of great importance to galactic peace. As our civilization grows and explores new regions of space, we encounter younger species. Some adapt well to galactic society. Others do not. A wave of agreement rippled through the assembly. Several species nodded or made their own signs of approval. The Threx clicked their mandibles faster, which meant they were excited. Vex Thai continued. The Unworthy Worlds Protocol represents our commitment to preventing future conflicts. By identifying potentially dangerous civilizations early, we can guide them toward peaceful development or, if necessary, take steps to protect galactic stability. Sarah Chun felt her stomach tighten, but she kept her face calm. She had heard rumors about this protocol for months. The Human Intelligence Network, though young, had picked up whispers from various sources. Most species assumed humans were too primitive to have effective spies, which made their job much easier. The protocol is simple, Vex Thai explained as holographic displays appeared above the assembly. We monitor developing civilizations for specific warning signs. Rapid technological advancement without corresponding social development. Aggressive territorial expansion. Resistance to authority. Individual freedom taken to dangerous extremes. The humans exchanged very brief glances. Every item on that list described human civilization perfectly. A Futari delegate flickered brighter and spoke in musical tones. What constitutes dangerous extremes of individual freedom? Excellent question, Vex Thai replied. Species that prioritize individual desires over collective harmony create instability. They resist proper guidance from more advanced civilizations. They ask uncomfortable questions about established order. History shows us that such species eventually threaten galactic peace. Commander Morrison's hand moved slightly toward his communication device, then stopped. The movement was so small that only another human might have noticed it. The protocol has 3 phases, Vexthay continued. First, enhanced monitoring and cultural pressure to conform to galactic norms. Second, economic and political isolation to encourage compliance. Third, if necessary, preemptive intervention to prevent future conflict. What does preemptive intervention mean exactly? Asked Speaker Korth of the Mineral Consortium. His rock-like form shifted slightly as he spoke. Complete neutralization of the threat, Vexthay said calmly. Whether through forced relocation, technological suppression, or total population control. Whatever ensures galactic stability. The hall fell silent. Many species looked uncomfortable, but none spoke against the proposal. The humans sat like statues, their faces showing nothing. Of course, Vexthay added, this protocol would only apply to genuinely dangerous species. Most young civilizations adapt well to galactic guidance. The Palaxians, for example, quickly learned to appreciate collective decision-making over their primitive democratic systems. Several delegates made sounds of approval. The Palaxians had been contacted 60 years ago and now served as loyal workers in Damari mining operations. Their home planet had been strip-mined, but they seemed content with their new roles. We have identified several species that may require attention under this protocol, Vexthay said. The final list will be presented tomorrow for voting. I encourage all delegates to consider the greater good of galactic civilization. As the session ended, delegates began filing out in small groups. Conversations filled the air in dozens of languages, all filtered through the translation systems into a constant hum of discussion. Most seemed pleased with the proposal. Finally, someone was taking action to prevent future wars and conflicts. The human delegation remained, seated until most other species had left. Only then did Sarah Chun allow herself to breathe deeply. Thoughts? She asked quietly. We're on that list, Morrison replied. No question about it. All of us suspected as much. The question is what we do about it. Dr. Eliza Park, the human scientific advisor, looked around the nearly empty hall. They really believe they're doing the right thing. That's what makes this so terrifying. Sarah nodded. Evil people you can fight. People who think they're saving the galaxy while committing genocide. That's much more dangerous. As the humans finally stood to leave, none of them noticed the small Zilari delegate who had lingered near the back, listening carefully to their conversation. His large eyes watched them go, and his skin shifted to a deep purple color that meant he was very troubled by what he had heard. The Galactic Assembly had made its intentions clear. Tomorrow would bring the vote that would decide humanity's fate, along with several other young species. But the galaxy was about to learn something important about humans. They did not go quietly into the dark. The human delegation returned to their quarters in silence. The station's corridors hummed with activity as delegates from various species discussed the day's proceedings. Most conversations carried tones of satisfaction and approval. The galaxy was finally taking steps to prevent future conflicts. Inside the human diplomatic suite, the mood was very different. Sarah Chun activated the room's privacy shields, technology that humans had developed to prevent electronic surveillance. Most species assumed humans were too primitive to have such advanced counterintelligence capabilities. Arya, full sweep, Sarah said quietly. A soft female voice responded from hidden speakers. Scanning complete, Ambassador. No surveillance devices detected. Privacy shields are functioning normally. Commander Morrison pulled out a secure tablet and connected it to their quantum communication array. "I'm calling an emergency session with Earth Command." Within minutes, holographic images appeared in the room. Admiral Rebecca Foster materialized first, her gray hair and stern expression reflecting the seriousness of the situation. General Robert Hayes appeared next, followed by Dr. Elena Vasquez from the Human Intelligence Agency. "Report," Admiral Foster said simply. Sarah quickly summarized the day's events. As she described the unworthy world's protocol, the faces of the Earth Command team grew darker. "They're planning genocide," General Hayes said bluntly. "And they're calling it peacekeeping." "It's worse than that," Dr. Park interjected. "They genuinely believe they're doing the right thing. This isn't evil for evil's sake. They think they're protecting galactic civilization." Dr. Vasquez leaned forward. "What about the species they mentioned that required attention under the protocol? Do we have any intelligence on previous implementations?" Morrison activated another display. "That's where things get truly horrible. Remember the Kepler survey? We've been tracking missing civilizations for the past 20 years. Species that made first contact with the galaxy and then simply vanished from all records." The display showed a star map with red markers scattered across various sectors. Each marker represented a species that had been contacted by galactic civilization and then disappeared. 23 confirmed cases, Morrison continued. The Altarians were contacted 40 years ago. They were described as innovative but stubborn. Last recorded communication was them refusing to relocate from their homeworld for a Damari mining operation. 2 years later, their system went silent. Sarah felt sick. The Rigel Collective? Similar story. They had developed their own faster-than-light technology that was different from standard galactic drives. The Assembly declared it potentially destabilizing to established trade routes. The Collective refused to abandon their technology. 3 years later, complete radio silence. Dr. Vasquez studied the data. Pattern analysis suggests these weren't natural disasters or internal conflicts. The timing is too convenient, and in every case, the species had been marked as non-compliant with galactic standards. "They've been doing this for decades," Admiral Foster said grimly. "And now they're formalizing the process." General Hayes activated his own display. "Elena, what's our current intelligence on galactic military capabilities?" "That's the thing, sir. They don't really have military capabilities as we understand them. Most species have been at peace for so long that they've forgotten how to fight. The Damari have the largest fleet, but it's mostly used for police actions and trade enforcement. Then, how are they eliminating entire civilizations?" Dr. Vasquez highlighted several sectors on the map. "Biological warfare, most likely. Several of the disappeared species died from mysterious plagues that specifically targeted their physiology. Others suffered complete technological failures that left them helpless. A few experienced natural disasters that were too convenient to be natural." Sarah realized something. They're not warriors. They're exterminators. They don't fight their enemies. They simply erase them. The room fell silent as the implications sank in. This wasn't a civilization of conquerors or warmongers. It was something far more terrifying, a bureaucratic machine that eliminated inconvenient species with the same casual efficiency they used to file reports. "What about us?" Dr. Park asked. "Are we definitely on their list?" Morrison brought up new data. "According to our deep cover sources, humanity scores maximum danger ratings in all their categories. Rapid technological advancement, check. We went from chemical rockets to faster-than-light travel in less than a century. Resistance to authority, double check. We're the only species that's ever refused to adopt galactic standard technologies or social structures. Individual freedom taken to dangerous extremes," Sarah added bitterly. Apparently, the concept of human rights is considered a galactic threat. Admiral Foster made a decision. How long before the vote? Tomorrow afternoon, Galactic Standard Time, Sarah replied. Options? General Hayes spoke first. We could try to fight it politically. Rally opposition among other species. Unlikely to succeed, Dr. Vasquez countered. Most species genuinely believe the protocol is necessary. They've been conditioned to fear chaos more than injustice. We could reveal what happened to the other 23 species, Dr. Park suggested. Expose the genocide. With what proof? Morrison asked. They've been very careful. No survivors, no witnesses, no evidence. Just empty star systems and convenient explanations. Sarah stood up and walked to the window overlooking space. In the distance she could see Earth's moon, barely visible as a tiny dot. Somewhere beyond that was home, with 8 billion people who had no idea their existence had been judged unworthy by beings they had trusted as allies. There is another option, she said quietly. The room waited. We leave. All of us. Every human in galactic space. Every colony. Every diplomatic mission. We withdraw completely from galactic civilization. That would be seen as an admission of guilt, General Hayes pointed out. It would justify their actions. Would it matter? Sarah turned back to face them. They've already decided to eliminate us. The vote tomorrow is just a formality. At least if we leave voluntarily, we control the timing. Admiral Foster considered this. It would mean abandoning everything we've built here. All our relationships, our trade agreements, our scientific exchanges. Relationships? Sarah laughed bitterly. With people planning our genocide? Trade agreements with species that think we're too dangerous to live. Scientific exchanges with civilizations that consider us aberrant? Commander Morrison pulled up another display. There's something else. Our intelligence suggests they're not planning to wait for compliance phases. Humanity is being classified as an immediate threat. If the vote passes tomorrow, implementation could begin within days. The holographic figures from Earth Command exchanged glances. Admiral Foster spoke carefully. What kind of implementation are we looking at? Biological warfare targeting human genetics, most likely. Maybe an engineered plague that only affects us. Or they might go with technological sabotage, shutting down our life support systems and leaving us to suffocate in space. Dr. Park shuddered. How can they be so casual about murder? Because they don't see it as murder, Sarah replied. They see it as pest control. We're not people to them. We're a problem to be solved. The communication from Earth crackled slightly as Admiral Foster made her decision. Ambassador Chun, you have full authority to act as you see fit. If you believe withdrawal is our best option, you have Earth's complete support. What about the colonies? The civilian populations? We'll begin immediate evacuation protocols, under cover of routine supply runs and crew rotations. If anyone asks, it's just normal logistics. General Hayes added, we'll also activate certain contingency plans that have been in development. Let's just say humanity has not been entirely passive during our time in galactic society. Sarah nodded, understanding the implications. Humanity had learned long ago not to trust blindly. While they had presented themselves as simple, primitive newcomers, they had been very busy behind the scenes. As the communication ended and the holograms faded, the human delegation sat in thoughtful silence. Tomorrow would bring the vote that condemned their species. But tonight, they had work to do. The galaxy was about to learn that humans did not go quietly into the dark. And more importantly, they were about to discover that humanity had never been as helpless as they appeared. The Galactic Assembly Hall buzzed with excited conversation as delegates took their seats for the historic vote. News of the Unworthy Worlds Protocol had spread throughout the station. and most species seemed pleased that the galaxy was finally taking decisive action to prevent future conflicts. High Counselor Vexthai stood at the central podium, his silver eyes scanning the assembled delegates with satisfaction. Behind him, holographic displays showed the proposed protocol in detail, including implementation timelines and resource requirements. Before we begin the formal voting process, Vexthai announced, we will present the list of species requiring immediate attention under the new protocol. The human delegation sat quietly in their section. Sarah Chun wore her standard blue diplomatic uniform, her face calm and composed. She had spent the previous night in deep thought and longer conversations with Earth Command. What they were about to do would change everything. The first holographic display showed a familiar blue and green planet. The species designation human, Vexthai read, represents a significant threat to galactic stability. Origin world, Sol 3, also called Earth in their primitive language. Murmurs of agreement rippled through the assembly. Several species nodded knowingly, as if they had expected this announcement. Human society demonstrates all primary warning indicators, Vexthai continued. Extreme technological advancement achieved in an impossibly short time frame. Strong resistance to establish galactic authority. Individual freedom prioritized over collective harmony. Most concerning, they have refused to adopt standard galactic social structures, insisting on maintaining their own primitive governmental systems. The Kovani delegate, a massive bear-like creature whose fur showed deep purple thoughtfulness, raised one of his large paws. What about their diplomatic record? Have humans shown direct aggression? Not direct aggression, no, Vexthai admitted. However, their entire culture is built around conflict and competition. They call it free enterprise and democratic debate. Such systems inevitably lead to instability and eventually to interstellar warfare. Sarah Chun stood up slowly. Her movement was quiet, but something about it caught the attention of the entire assembly. Conversations died away as thousands of alien eyes focused on the small human figure. High Counselor Vexthai, she said clearly, I request permission to address the assembly before the vote. Vexthai looked surprised. This is highly irregular. The protocols for, I invoke Article 12 of the Galactic Charter, Sarah interrupted. Any species facing formal censure has the right to speak in their own defense. A wave of whispered conversations swept the hall. Most species had forgotten that ancient rule, which dated back to the founding of the Assembly over 1,000 years ago. Vexthai clearly wanted to refuse, but too many delegates were watching. Very well. You may speak, but briefly. Sarah walked slowly to the speaker's platform. Her steps echoed in the suddenly silent hall. She looked small and fragile compared to the massive creatures around her, but her bearing was straight and confident. Honored delegates, she began, her voice carrying clearly through the translation systems. I thank you for this opportunity to speak on behalf of humanity. She paused, letting her eyes sweep across the assembly. When she continued, her tone was calm but carried an edge of steel that made several delegates shift uncomfortably. 50 years ago, humanity reached for the stars with hope in our hearts. We dreamed of joining a galactic community based on mutual respect and cooperation. We believed that intelligence and wisdom went hand in hand, that advanced civilizations would naturally be just and fair. The Photari delegation flickered more brightly, their energy forms responding to some unspoken tension in the air. We were wrong, Sarah continued. What we found instead was a galaxy ruled by fear. Fear of change, fear of difference, fear of anyone who might ask uncomfortable questions about the way things are. This is inappropriate, Vexthai interrupted. You are here to defend your species, not to insult the assembly. Sarah looked directly at him. I am defending my species, Counselor. By telling the truth. She turned back to the assembly. You speak of the unworthy world's protocol as if it were new, but humanity has been investigating galactic history for decades. We know about the Altarians. We know about the Rigel Collective. We know about the Kepler Survey species and the Vega Confederation, and 21 other civilizations that simply vanished after refusing to conform to your standards. The hall erupted in shocked voices. Several species looked genuinely surprised, while others appeared uncomfortable, as if hearing things they preferred not to acknowledge. 23 civilizations, Sarah said loudly, cutting through the noise. 23 species who committed no crime except thinking differently than you do. 23 worlds full of unique art, literature, music, and ideas. All erased because they failed to fit your narrow definition of acceptable behavior. Vexth's silver eyes blazed with anger. These are baseless accusations. Those species face natural disasters or internal conflicts. Plagues that specifically targeted their genetics? Sarah challenged. Technological failures that affected only their most critical systems. Solar flares that somehow avoided affecting neighboring star systems? Your excuses might fool species who don't want to look too closely. But humans have been watching and recording everything. Commander Morrison and the other human delegates stood up behind her, their faces grim and determined. You call us dangerous because we advance too quickly, Sarah continued. But real danger doesn't come from progress or innovation. Real danger comes from civilizations so afraid of change that they would rather commit genocide than face the possibility that their way might not be the only right way. Dr. Park stepped forward and activated a portable holographic projector. Images filled the air above the assembly. Star charts showing the locations of vanished civilizations. Timeline data correlating their disappearances with assembly actions. Communication records that have been classified as secret. We know what you are, Sarah said quietly, but her voice carried to every corner of the massive hall. You are not protectors of galactic peace. You are not wise guardians of civilization. You are cowards who destroy what you cannot control. The silence in the hall was complete. Even the background hum of the station's systems seemed to fade away. Sarah straightened her shoulders. Therefore, on behalf of all humanity, I formally reject the authority of this assembly. We refuse to participate in a system built on the bones of murdered civilizations. We refuse to legitimize genocide by calling it peacekeeping. She began walking back toward the human section, but stopped and turned around one final time. The human delegation withdraws from the Galactic Assembly, effective immediately. We will no longer pretend that this organization represents anything but organized tyranny disguised as civilization. Commander Morrison activated his communication device. Throughout the hall, every human delegate received the same message simultaneously. Protocol 7 is now in effect. All personnel return to ships immediately. The human delegates began filing out of their section in perfect formation. They moved with military precision, but their faces showed no anger, no hatred. Instead, they displayed something far more terrifying to the watching aliens: cold, determined certainty. As they reached the main exit, Sarah Chun stopped and turned back to address the assembly one final time. You may vote to declare us an enemy of galactic peace, she said. You may send your fleets and your plagues and your convenient disasters. But know this: humanity remembers. We remember every species you've murdered, every lie you've told, every innocent life you've destroyed in the name of stability. Her voice dropped to barely above a whisper, but the translation systems carried it clearly to every delegate, and we will never forgive. With that, the human delegation walked out of the Galactic Assembly Hall. Their footsteps echoed in the stunned silence, growing fainter and fainter until they disappeared completely. For long minutes, No one moved. No one spoke. The most powerful beings in the galaxy sat frozen, staring at the empty space where the humans had been. Finally, Vextay found his voice. The vote will proceed as scheduled. But as delegates began to murmur among themselves, many were asking uncomfortable questions. If humans could discover 23 hidden genocides, what else did they know? If they could walk away from the assembly with such calm confidence, what preparations had they made? And most disturbing of all, if humanity was willing to declare themselves enemies of the galactic order, what exactly did that mean for the rest of the galaxy? The humans were gone, but their words lingered like a poison in the air. For the first time in centuries, the Galactic Assembly faced a species that refused to be afraid of them, and that terrified them more than any weapon ever could. The Galactic Assembly was still reeling from the human walkout when the first reports began arriving. What started as confused communications from Outer Rim colonies quickly became a flood of increasingly urgent messages from across the galaxy. High Counselor Vextay sat in his private office aboard the assembly station, trying to process the information his aides kept bringing him. Each report was more baffling than the last. "Sir," his assistant Croman stammered, her blue Zilari skin flushed with anxiety. "We're receiving evacuation notices from the Kepler sector. Human ships they're removing civilian populations from their worlds." Vextay looked up from the scattered reports on his desk. "What do you mean, removing? Are they taking hostages?" "No, sir, that's just it. They're evacuating non-human families and transporting them to safer systems." The Threx colony on Kepler-7 reported that human cargo ships arrived this morning with no warning, loaded up all non-human residents, and transported them to the inner worlds with full life support and provisions. Another aide rushed in. This one, a nervous Corvani, whose fur showed patches of bright yellow fear. "Counselor, we have similar reports from the Vega sector, the Altair region, and the Centauri colonies. Human ships are evacuating alien civilians from any world within 50 light-years of human space." Vextay stood up slowly, his silver eyes narrowing. "They're clearing the area. But why would they care about alien civilians if they're planning some kind of attack?" The answer came from an unexpected source. Admiral Dekvar of the Damari fleet burst into the office without ceremony, his usually perfect gray uniform disheveled and his face showing shock. "Counselor," Dekvar said urgently, "we have a massive problem. The human merchant fleet is not what we thought it was." "Explain." Dekvar activated a portable holographic display. Images appeared showing human cargo ships that had been routine sites throughout the galaxy for decades. But now these same ships were shedding their outer hulls like insects molting, revealing configurations unlike anything in galactic databases. Every human cargo ship was actually a military vessel in disguise, Dekvar explained. The cargo pods were false hulls. Underneath, they have weapons, shields, and propulsion systems that don't match any known galactic technology. "How many ships are we talking about?" "Over 2,000 confirmed so far, sir. And that's just the merchant fleet. We're also detecting massive power signatures from the human colonies themselves. They're not just settlements, Counselor. They're fortified military bases." Krellman pulled up another display. "Sir, we're also receiving reports of previously unknown human installations. Deep space monitoring stations that were supposedly lost to accidents or equipment failures. They're all coming online simultaneously." Vextay felt a cold dread settling in his stomach. "How long have they been planning this?" "Unknown, sir. But based on the scope of these preparations, decades at minimum." Admiral Dekvar brought up a galaxy-wide tactical display. Red dots marked known human positions, while yellow indicators showed the mysterious installations now revealing themselves. The pattern was terrifying in its completeness. They have strategic positions covering all major trade routes, Dekvar said quietly. Communication hubs, supply depots, staging areas. If this were a military operation, it would represent the most sophisticated deployment in galactic history. But it can't be, Vexthai protested. Humans are primitive. They've only had faster-than-light travel for 50 years. Have they? Krellman asked softly. She was studying data from the human evacuations. Sir, some of these ships are using technologies we don't recognize. Their faster-than-light drives are completely different from standard galactic designs. The pieces were falling into place, and the picture they formed was deeply disturbing. Humans hadn't simply stumbled into galactic society 50 years ago. They had arrived with specific plans and had spent decades implementing them while everyone assumed they were harmless newcomers. Get me a communication link with the human delegation, Vexthai ordered. Sir, they've left the station, Krellman reported. Their ships departed immediately after the walkout. We don't have any way to contact them directly. Then contact their colonies, their home system. Someone must be willing to talk. Admiral Dekvar shook his head grimly. We've tried, sir. Every human facility is responding with the same message. Humanity no longer recognizes the authority of the Galactic Assembly. Direct all future communications to your local human evacuation coordinator. Local evacuation coordinator? Yes, sir. It appears they've assigned specific human officials to handle the removal of alien civilians from contested areas. Vexthai walked to his office window and stared out at the galaxy beyond. In the distance, he could see human ships moving in perfect formation, their true nature now revealed. What he had thought was a ragtag collection of primitive vessels was actually a precisely coordinated fleet. What about their technology? He asked. Our intelligence reports indicated they were far behind galactic standards. Dekvar pulled up new data. Those reports were based on what they chose to show us, sir. The human ships we're observing now demonstrate capabilities that exceed our own in several areas. Their energy shields are adapting in real time to our scanning attempts. Their weapon systems are completely unknown configurations. Unknown how? They don't match any galactic design principles, sir. It's as if they developed their technology along completely different lines from the rest of us. Krellman added another troubling detail. Sir, we're also receiving reports that many of the human students and researchers who have been working throughout galactic space for the past several decades have disappeared. All of them left their positions within hours of the assembly walkout. The implications hit Vexthai like a physical blow. They weren't students. They were intelligence operatives. It appears so, sir. We now estimate that humans have had deep cover agents in most major galactic institutions for at least 20 years. Admiral Dekvar brought up a new display showing communication intercepts. We're also detecting massive data transfers from galactic networks to human systems. They've been copying our databases, our military plans, our technological specifications, everything. For how long? Unknown, sir. But based on the volume of data involved, probably since they first arrived. Vexthai realized with growing horror that everything the Assembly thought they knew about humanity was wrong. These weren't primitive newcomers stumbling around the galaxy. They were a sophisticated civilization that had been conducting a decades-long intelligence operation while pretending to be harmless. What about the other species? He asked. Are any of them cooperating with the humans? Krellman checked her displays. No, sir, but we're getting reports of several species requesting information about the human evacuation program. The Zalari Collective has formally asked for protection from Assembly retaliation. The Mineral Consortium is questioning whether the Unworthy Worlds Protocol applies to them as well. They're scared, Dekvar realized. If humans could uncover 23 hidden genocides, Other species are wondering what we might do to them. The communication system chimed, and a new message appeared. It was from humanity, broadcast simultaneously to every government in galactic space. Ambassador Sarah Chun appeared in holographic form, standing in what looked like a military command center. Behind her, human officers worked at advanced control stations that bristled with unknown technology. To the governments and peoples of the galaxy, she began. Humanity has withdrawn from galactic society not out of aggression, but out of necessity. We cannot participate in a system that views genocide as acceptable policy. Her image looked directly at the camera, and Vexthai felt as if she were staring straight at him. We are currently evacuating all non-human civilians from areas that may become contested. This is being done for their protection, not as an act of aggression. Any species that wishes to join our evacuation program may contact the coordinators we have assigned to your region. She paused, and when she continued, her voice carried a cold certainty that made Vexthai's silver blood run cold. We know everything. Every secret database, every classified operation, every hidden facility. We know about the Altarian Plague Labs on Rigel 4. We know about the asteroid bombardment systems in the Vega sector. We know about the mind control experiments conducted on the Kepler species. The hologram flickered slightly, but Chun's image remained steady and determined. We are not your enemies, but we will no longer pretend to be your friends. Humanity chooses to stand apart from galactic civilization until such time as that civilization demonstrates that it has learned to value justice over stability, truth over comfort, and life over convenience. The transmission ended, leaving the office in stunned silence. Vexthai finally found his voice. How many secrets do they know? Admiral Vekvar was studying the data streams still coming in from across the galaxy. All of them, sir. Based on these reports, humanity has infiltrated every major government, every military organization, every research facility. They know everything we've ever done. The full scope of what had happened was becoming clear. Humanity hadn't just walked out of the assembly. They had checkmated the entire galactic order in a single move. 3 months had passed since humanity's dramatic exit from the Galactic Assembly. The vote on the Unworthy Worlds Protocol had never taken place. Instead, the galaxy found itself facing a crisis unlike anything in recorded history. High Counselor Vexthai stood in his private chambers, staring at reports that grew more troubling each day. The neat, ordered universe he had known was falling apart, and humanity was somehow responsible without firing a single shot. Sir, his aide Krellman announced quietly, the Zalari Collective has formally withdrawn from the Assembly. They're the 7th species to leave this month. Vexthai turned from the window, his silver eyes showing exhaustion that went deeper than physical tiredness. What reason did they give? The same as the others, sir. They no longer trust the Assembly's commitment to peaceful cooperation after learning about the previous genocides. The door chimed, and Admiral Vekvar entered without waiting for permission. His usual perfect appearance was gone, replaced by the haggard look of a military leader facing an impossible situation. Counselor, Vekvar said urgently, we have another problem. The Futari have begun sharing their historical archives with the entire galaxy. Unedited archives dating back 3,000 years. Vexthai felt his heart skip a beat. The Futari were the galaxy's memory keepers, energy beings who had witnessed the rise and fall of countless civilizations. Their archives contained truths that many governments preferred to keep buried. How much are they revealing? Everything, sir. Every war we started and blamed on others. Every species we eliminated for convenience. Every lie we've told about galactic history. The humans somehow convinced them that truth was more important than stability. Krellman activated a holographic display showing galactic communication networks. Red warning indicators flashed across dozens of systems. Sir, We're seeing massive civil unrest in 17 sectors. Species that trusted us for centuries are demanding answers about their missing neighbors. What about our military response? Vexthai asked desperately. Surely we can restore order through strength? Dekvar laughed bitterly. What military, sir? Half our fleet has defected to join the Human Protection Zone. The other half refuses to fire on civilian populations, demanding the truth. The communication system activated without being summoned, and Sarah Chun's image appeared in the room. She looked tired but determined, standing in what appeared to be a space station command center filled with beings from dozens of different species. High Counselor Vexthai, she said calmly. I believe it's time we had a direct conversation. How did you access our private communications? Vexthai demanded. The same way we accessed everything else over the past 50 years, Sarah replied. You never bothered to secure your systems against people you considered too primitive to be a threat. Vexthai noticed something in the background of the transmission. Non-human beings were working alongside humans, their body language showing cooperation rather than fear or coercion. What do you want? He asked. Nothing from you, Sarah said simply. We want nothing from the Assembly, nothing from the Damari Empire, nothing from any government that built its power on the bones of innocent species. Then, why are you contacting me? To make an offer. Not to you personally, but to any species that wants to join us in building something better. Admiral Dekvar stepped forward. You're talking about galactic war. Your actions have destabilized everything. Sarah's expression didn't change. We destabilized nothing, Admiral. We simply revealed what was already there. A house built on murder and lies was never stable to begin with. She gestured to someone off camera, and the transmission expanded to show the full command center. Beings from dozens of species worked together, their stations displaying star charts, communication networks, and coordination systems. This is the Free Worlds Alliance, Sarah explained. 67 species working together based on mutual respect and voluntary cooperation. No forced compliance, no threats of elimination, no secret protocols for dealing with unworthy civilizations. Vexthai stared at the display in growing horror. You're trying to replace the galactic government. No, Sarah said firmly. We're trying to replace the idea that the galaxy needs a single government controlling everyone through fear. Each species in the Alliance maintains complete sovereignty. We cooperate because we choose to, not because we're afraid of what happens if we don't. Krelman was studying data feeds from across the galaxy. Sir, she whispered, 43 more star systems have requested Alliance membership in the past week alone. How? Vexthai asked. How did you convince so many species to abandon galactic civilization? Sarah's smile was sad but determined. We didn't convince them of anything, Counselor. We simply gave them a choice they never knew they had. The right to say no to a system that demands obedience in exchange for the privilege of staying alive. The transmission shifted to show other Alliance leaders. A Corvani admiral whose fur showed confident blue patterns. A Photari energy being that pulsed with steady, peaceful light. Even several Threx whose mandibles clicked in the rhythm that indicated deep satisfaction. These beings aren't following humanity, Sarah continued. They're working with us as equals to build something that serves everyone's interests instead of just maintaining the power of a few. Admiral Dekvar tried one last challenge. What about security, order? Without central authority, the galaxy will descend into chaos. Sarah looked at him with something approaching pity. Admiral, we've had central authority for over 1,000 years, and in that time, 23 species have been secretly murdered for the crime of thinking differently. If that's your definition of order, then yes, we choose chaos. She paused, then continued in a gentler tone. But it won't be chaos. Free beings working together accomplish more than enslaved beings following orders. Always. The transmission began to fade, but Sarah made one final statement. The offer remains open to any species that wants to join us. Not to be ruled by humanity, but to work with us as partners in building a galaxy where intelligence is celebrated, not feared. As the communication ended, the three assembly officials stood in silence. Outside the windows, they could see more ships leaving the station, heading for the growing Alliance territories. "Sir," Krellman said quietly, "incoming message from the Mineral Consortium. They're requesting immediate Alliance membership and protection from Assembly retaliation." Vexthai slumped into his chair. "How many does that make?" 89 confirmed members, sir, with over 200 more species in various stages of negotiation. Admiral Lekvar activated his personal communicator. "I'm ordering the remaining fleet to stand down. We can't fight half the galaxy, and I won't be responsible for starting a war we can't win. You're abandoning your duty." Vexthai snapped. "No, sir," Lekvar replied calmly. "I'm refusing to follow orders that would make us the monsters the humans said we were." As the Admiral left, Vexthai realized that the galaxy he had known was gone forever. The neat hierarchy of species, the unquestioned authority of the Assembly, the comfortable assumption that order came from control, all of it was crumbling. In its place was rising something unprecedented, a galactic civilization based on choice rather than fear, cooperation rather than domination, truth rather than convenience. Krellman was reading from her communication display. "Sir, we're receiving formal requests for Alliance membership from 22 more systems, including 3 of our own Domari colonies." Vexthai closed his silver eyes. "What kind of galaxy are we becoming?" "I don't know, sir," Krellman replied. "But maybe that's the point. Maybe nobody should have the power to decide what the galaxy becomes except the beings who live in it." Across the galaxy, beings who had lived their entire lives under the shadow of the Assembly's authority were making choices for the first time. Some chose to stay with the old system, preferring familiar oppression to uncertain freedom. But millions more chose to reach for something they had never dared imagine. A galaxy where being different wasn't a death sentence, where asking questions wasn't treason, where justice mattered more than stability. Humanity had kept their word. They didn't seek to rule the galaxy. Instead, they had made it impossible for anyone else to rule it through fear and murder. The old galactic order was dying, not from conquest, but from exposure to a simple truth. Civilizations built on lies cannot survive contact with those who refuse to be afraid of the truth. And in the end, that was humanity's greatest weapon. Not their hidden fleets or their advanced technology or their decades of planning, but their absolute refusal to accept that things had to be the way they had always been. The galaxy observed in horror as humans stormed out of the Assembly. But what truly terrified the old powers was what came after, the discovery that freedom was contagious. That dignity was irresistible, and that once beings learned, they had a choice. They could never be enslaved again. The age of the Galactic Assembly was ending. The age of the Free Worlds Alliance was just beginning. And somewhere in the depths of space, on a small blue world orbiting a yellow star, humanity looked up at the night sky and smiled. They had kept their promise to the 23 murdered species. They would never forget, and they would never forgive.